The Empire had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. Their ships were everywhere. Their laws touched every corner of known space. 400 different species bowed to them, paid them tribute, and feared their wrath. They believed they were chosen by the universe itself to rule over all lesser beings. When their scouts first discovered the small blue planet called Earth, they laughed. The creatures living there had only just learned to leave their own world. Their ships were slow and clumsy. Their weapons were toys. The High Conclave, the group of powerful leaders who controlled everything, decided that humans were nothing special. They were just another young species that would soon learn to bow. But humans did not bow. They spread across space faster than anyone expected. They built colonies on distant worlds. They made friends with species that had forbidden others to contact. They traded with anyone who wanted to trade. They welcomed refugees who had escaped from cruelty. High Arbiter was the most powerful alive. He sat on a throne made of crystal from a dead world. He had destroyed entire civilizations with a single order. When reports came to him about the humans, he felt something he had not felt in centuries. He felt annoyed. "These creatures dare to ignore our laws," he said to the conclave. "They trade with forbidden species. They hide criminals who have fled from our justice. They refuse to send tribute or show proper respect to our envoys." The other members of the conclave nodded their large heads. They had ruled for so long that they had forgotten what it felt like to be challenged. "What do you suggest, High Arbiter?" asked one of the elder. Smiled, it was not a kind smile. "We will teach them what happens to those who defy the Empire. We will cut them off from everything. Total economic exclusion. No species under our rule will be allowed to trade with humans. No one will speak to them. No one will help them. They will be alone in the darkness of space." The vote was quick. Every member of the conclave raised their hand in agreement. The decree was written and sent to every world in the Empire. From this moment forward, humanity was banned. Any species caught helping humans would face terrible punishment. On a small space station called the Olive Branch, Ambassador received the message. She was a woman of 60 years with hair and tired eyes. She had spent her whole life trying to build peace between humans and the galaxy. She had believed that understanding was possible. She had been wrong. She read the decree 3 times. Then she sat in silence for a long moment. Her assistant, a young man named Thomas, watched her with worry. "What will we do?" he asked. Looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, 400 species were being told to hate her people. Somewhere out there, doors were closing that might never open again. "We go home," she said quietly, "and we tell Earth what happened." She walked to her communication console and typed a short message. It would travel faster than light to reach Earth in just a few hours. It said, "They have made their choice. Time to make ours." On the crystal world of Prime, High Arbiter celebrated his victory. He drank rare wine from a species that had gone extinct centuries ago. He accepted praise from his advisors. "How long until they break?" asked Commander, the leader of the Imperial fleet. "A decade at most," said, "probably less. They are young. They are weak. They need resources they cannot produce themselves. When their people start to starve, when their colonies start to fail, they will come crawling back to us. They will beg for forgiveness, and we will make them pay for every moment of defiance." The commander nodded. This was how it always worked. The Empire was patient. The Empire was eternal. Every species that had ever challenged them had eventually fallen. But the commander had never fought humans before. Across the galaxy, on 100 human worlds, people heard the news. They learned that they had been cast out, rejected, banned from the galactic community. Some felt fear. Some felt anger. Some felt deep sadness. On Earth, in a room deep beneath the mountains, the leaders of humanity gathered. President looked at the faces around the table. Scientists, generals, builders, dreamers, the best and of the human race. "They believe we will collapse without them," he said. "They believe we are weak. General Sarah, a woman who had fought in 3 wars and never lost, leaned forward. Then we show them how wrong they are. Dr. Jin, the head of Earth's most secret research program, nodded slowly. We have projects, technologies we never finished because galactic trade made them unnecessary. If we restart them all. Do it, said President. No more looking to the stars for help. From now on, we help ourselves. And when we are ready, we will show the galaxy what humanity can really do. The meeting lasted for 7 hours. When it ended, messages went out to every human colony. The consolidation had begun. Every scientist, every engineer, every worker would be needed. Humanity was about to rebuild itself from the ground up. In her quarters on the Olive Branch, Ambassador packed her few belongings. She took one last look at the stars through her window. You made a mistake today, she whispered to the darkness. And one day you will understand just how terrible that mistake was. She turned off the lights and walked away. Behind her the station grew dark, but far away on 100 human worlds, lights were turning on. Humanity was getting to work. 5 years passed. They watched and waited for humanity to die. Every month their spies sent reports. Every month asked the same question: have they broken yet? Every month the answer was the same: no, High Arbiter, they have not. This confused them. It had always worked before. When they cut off a species from trade, that species suffered. Their economies collapsed. Their people starved. They came crawling back within a few years, ready to accept any terms the Empire demanded. But humanity was different. What they did not understand was simple. Humans had never truly needed the Empire. They had traded with aliens because it was interesting, not because it was necessary. They had engaged with the galaxy because they wanted to make friends, not because they would die without them. Now alone and free, humanity worked. Dr. Jin stood at the center of it all. He was an old man now, but his mind was sharp. He ran the United Earth Research Initiative from a massive underground facility. Thousands of scientists worked under his command. They had one goal: make humanity strong enough to never be threatened again. They spent 12,000 years stealing technology from conquered species, Jin told his team. They hoarded knowledge like dragons hoarding gold, but they never invented anything new. They stopped trying. They got lazy. He pointed at a screen showing a complex diagram. We are not lazy. We will invent. We will create. We will become something the galaxy has never seen before. The projects were ambitious. Energy systems that could power entire planets using nothing but empty space. Matter printers that could create anything from raw atoms. Ships that could fold space itself and travel anywhere in moments. Most important of all were the ghost drives. These were engines that let human ships move through dimensions they did not even know existed. A ship using a ghost drive could appear anywhere, pass through any wall, and vanish before anyone could react. They would have called these things impossible. Humans called them Tuesday. In secret medical facilities, doctors worked with the refugees who had fled to Earth over the years. Many of these aliens had been slaves of the Empire. They remembered things, secret technologies that they had forbidden anyone else to use, weak points in imperial systems, codes and passwords that might still work. One old alien, a being with 6 arms and sad blue eyes, sat with for many hours. He had been a scientist before they destroyed his world. We tried to fight them once, he said. They broke us completely, but before we fell we created something, a way to shut down their shield generators. We hid the plans in a place they would never find. Leaned forward, where? The alien tapped his own head. In here, I memorized them. I have waited 80 years for someone who could use them. Stories like this happened again and again. Refugees shared secrets they had carried for generations. Humanity collected these gifts and used them well. Meanwhile, the Empire began to crack. It happened slowly at first. Worlds that had secretly traded with humans found that their economies were struggling. Human goods had been cheap and high quality. Now those goods were gone, and there was nothing to replace them. They responded by demanding more tribute. They sent tax collectors to squeeze their subject peoples harder. This made the problems worse, not better. In dark corners of the empire, whispers spread. The humans are still out there. The empire could not break them. Maybe the empire is not as strong as we thought. A young female alien named worked in a factory on a conquered world. She had been born a slave and expected to die a slave, but she had heard the whispers. If the humans can resist the empire, she said to her friends, maybe one day we can too. Her friends told her to be quiet. Such talk was dangerous, but remembered the human merchants who had visited her world before the ban. They had treated her like a person, not property. They had smiled at her. One had given her a small gift, a tiny mechanical bird that sang when you wound it up. She still had that bird. She looked at it every night. It reminded her that somewhere in the galaxy there were people who believed everyone deserved to be free. On Earth, General Sarah reviewed the growing fleet. Human ships were beautiful now, sleek and fast and deadly. They were equipped with weapons that could disable enemy vessels without killing anyone inside. They were crewed by soldiers who had trained for years for a fight they hoped would never come. "We are almost ready," she reported to the council. President nodded slowly. "Almost is not enough. We wait until we are certain. When we move against the Empire, we will only get one chance. We must not fail." So humanity continued to prepare. They built more ships. They trained more soldiers. They refined their technologies until they were perfect. Ambassador spent these years gathering intelligence. Her network of contacts spread throughout the Empire. She knew which species hated the most. She knew which worlds might rise up if given the chance. She knew the names of every conclave member and exactly what crimes they had committed. "When the time comes," she told her team, "we will not fight alone. The Empire has made enemies everywhere. They just do not know it yet." 5 years after the ban, humanity was no longer the weak young species they had dismissed. They had become something new, something powerful, something patient. They were ready. They just needed a reason to move. Unfortunately for the Empire, that reason was coming soon. The Wandering Star was a small exploration ship. It carried 43 crew members. Their mission was simple: map the edges of human space and look for new worlds that might support life. Captain Maria Santos loved her job. She had grown up dreaming of the stars, and now she flew among them every day. Her crew was like family. They shared meals together, celebrated birthdays together, and supported each other through the long months in deep space. The youngest member of the crew was David. He was only 17, a navigation apprentice who had earned his place through brilliant test scores and endless determination. His mother had cried when he left Earth. His father had told him to make humanity proud. "I will," David had promised. "I will see things no human has ever seen." On a cold morning in the 7th year after the ban, the Wandering Star drifted into neutral space. This was an area that belonged to no one. The Empire had no legal authority there. Captain Santos thought they would be safe. She was wrong. Fleet Commander had been hunting for human ships for months. He was frustrated and angry. The Empire had expected humanity to collapse, but instead they had grown stronger. Rumors said human technology now surpassed anything they had. Needed a victory. He needed to prove that the Empire was still mighty. When his sensors detected the Wandering Star, he smiled. "A small exploration vessel," his tactical officer reported. "Minimal weapons, 43 life signs." "Destroy it," said. The tactical officer hesitated. "Sir, this is neutral space. We have no authority here, and they are not threatening us." Turned to look at the officer with cold eyes. "Are you questioning my order?" The officer swallowed hard. "No, Commander." Then destroy it. Let this be a warning to all humans. The Empire's reach is everywhere. The weapons fired. The wandering star had no chance. In less than 1 minute, the ship was torn apart. 43 people died in the cold darkness of space. David never got to see the wonders he had dreamed of. Captain Santos had time to send one final message before the end. It was short. It was desperate. It reached Earth 7 hours later. This is the wandering star. We are under attack by warships in neutral space. We have done nothing wrong. Please remember us. Then there was only silence. On Earth, the message spread like fire. Every screen showed the faces of the dead. 43 names. 43 stories that had ended too soon. David's mother collapsed when she heard the news. His father stood very still, tears running down his face. The people of Earth had been patient for 7 years. They had worked and waited and hoped that maybe, somehow, war could be avoided. That hope died with the wandering star. President called an emergency meeting of all human leaders. General was already there when he arrived. Her face was stone. "The time for waiting is over," she said. "They murdered our people in neutral space. If we do not respond, they will do it again." Dr. Jin nodded. "We are ready. The technology is complete. Our fleets are prepared. We can win this war." Ambassador spoke last. Her voice was tired and sad. "I have spent my whole life trying to build peace, but peace requires both sides to want it. They have shown us what they truly are. We must respond." President closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, his decision was made. "Prepare the declaration," he said. "But we will not be like them. We will give them one chance to surrender before we act." The next day, Secretary General addressed the galaxy. She was the daughter of General, chosen to speak because her voice carried the weight of humanity's sorrow and anger. Her message was broadcast on every channel humanity could reach. The Empire's secure networks were broken in seconds. Every species in the galaxy heard her words. "The Empire has moved from economic war to murder," she began. "They attacked an unarmed exploration vessel in neutral space. They killed 43 innocent people, including a 17-year-old boy whose only crime was wanting to see the stars." She paused to let the words sink in. "We did not seek this conflict. We will end it. To every species living under imperial rule, your liberation begins now. To the High Conclave, you have 1 standard year to dissolve your government, release all conquered worlds, and surrender your military forces. There will be no negotiation. There will be no extension. The clock starts now." High Arbiter laughed when he heard the message. "Empty threats from desperate animals," he said. "They do not have the power to challenge us." 1 hour later, 30 Imperial border worlds went dark. Human ghost fleets had appeared without warning. They disabled every orbital defense station, every sensor array, every weapon platform. Not a single person was killed. When the systems came back online, a new message was waiting. "We could have destroyed you. We chose not to, this time." The Empire stopped laughing. The year of reckoning had begun. The Empire gathered its full strength. 12,000 warships, millions of soldiers, weapons so terrible they had been forbidden for centuries. They would crush humanity completely. They would burn every human world to ash. High Arbiter stood before his commanders. His face was twisted with rage. "Find them, destroy them, leave nothing behind." Fleet Commander led the attack. He was the same man who had ordered the destruction of the wandering star. He believed this would be an easy victory. He was very, very wrong. The first human ships his fleet encountered simply vanished. One moment they were there. The next moment they were gone. His weapons passed through empty space. "Where did they go?" he screamed at his crew. No one could answer. The humans reappeared behind his fleet. They fired weapons that made no sense. Energy beams that passed through shields like they did not exist. Pulses that shut down engines without damaging anything else. His mighty warships drifted helplessly while smaller human vessels moved among them like wolves among sheep. But the humans did not kill. They disabled, they captured, they took prisoners and treated them well. Escaped with only a handful of ships. When he reported to, his voice was shaking. Their technology is beyond anything we have seen. They move through space in ways that should be impossible. Our weapons cannot touch them. Refused to believe it, he sent more fleets. They all met the same fate. Admiral commanded the human forces. She was a small woman with calm eyes and an iron will. She had studied the Empire for years. She knew exactly how to defeat them without becoming like them. "We are not here to conquer," she told her crews before every battle. "We are here to free. Every enemy soldier we capture is someone's child. Every ship we disable is a chance to end this war peacefully. We fight with precision, not anger." Her strategy was simple but brilliant. Human ghost fleets would appear deep inside Imperial territory. They would disable power stations that supplied energy to entire systems. They would capture communication centers that controlled military networks. They would vanish before reinforcements could arrive. But Admiral's most powerful weapon was not technology. It was words. Ambassador broadcast messages to every conquered world. "We are not here to replace one master with another," she said. "We are here to open your cages. What you do with your freedom is your choice." On a factory world called Seven, a young alien named heard the message. She was the same slave who had kept the mechanical bird given to her by human traders years ago. She had dreamed of freedom her whole life. Now freedom was calling to her. "The humans are telling the truth," she said to her fellow workers. "I met them once. They treated me like a person. We should help them." The factory workers began to sabotage their machines. They hid supplies meant for the Imperial military. They passed information to human scouts who appeared in the night. This happened on hundreds of worlds. Slaves stopped working. Subject peoples rose up against their masters. The Empire found itself fighting on 1,000 fronts at once. Sent brutal enforcers to crush the rebellions. But for every uprising they stopped, 3 more began. The message had spread too far. Hope had taken root. General Sarah led ground operations. Her soldiers landed on worlds where the people had asked for help. They brought food and medicine. They helped establish local governments. They trained defense forces and then left, refusing to stay as occupiers. "We are not building an empire," she told her troops. "We are ending one. Every world we liberate makes humanity safer, but these people must rule themselves. That is the whole point." They tried to use their most terrible weapons, planet killers, star crushers, devices that could burn entire systems to nothing. But human ghost ships were always waiting. They appeared next to the weapons before they could fire. They disabled them. They captured them. Dr. Jin studied the captured weapons with sadness. They were willing to destroy entire worlds just to win. They would have killed billions of innocents. "That is the difference between them and us," said Ambassador. "They see people as things to be used. We see them as people." As the months passed, the empire shrank. World after world declared independence. Species that had been enslaved for thousands of years breathed free air for the first time. They did not always thank humanity. They did not always become allies, but they were free. The commander who had murdered the crew of the Wandering Star was captured during a battle near the Empire's inner territories. Human soldiers found him hiding in an escape pod. They brought him before Admiral. He expected torture. He expected death. That was what they would have done. Instead, Admiral looked at him with tired eyes. "You killed 43 innocent people, including a boy who just wanted to see the stars. You will face trial for that crime. A fair trial, with evidence and witnesses and a chance to defend yourself, because that is what justice looks like." Did not understand. "Why, we would have killed you all." Admiral shook her head. "We know, that is why we had to be better." By the end of the year, human fleets surrounded Prime, the heart of the Empire. The High Conclave had nowhere left to run. The final confrontation was about to begin. The crystal towers of Prime glittered under three pale suns. For 12,000 years, this world had been the center of everything. The seat of power, the heart of empire, the place where the fate of hundreds of species was decided by beings who believed they were gods. Now human ships filled the sky. They had appeared without warning, phasing through the most advanced defense systems in the galaxy as if those systems did not exist. Thousands of vessels, sleek and silent, surrounded the planet in a sphere of steel and light. Inside the conclave chamber, High Arbiter stared at his ancient face showed something no one had ever seen there before: fear. "How is this possible?" he whispered. "Our shields are impenetrable. Our sensors should have detected them hours ago." No one answered. The other members of the conclave sat frozen in their seats. They had spent their entire lives believing they were untouchable. That belief had just shattered. A screen flickered. The face of Secretary General appeared. She looked tired but calm. Behind her, the bridge of her flagship hummed with quiet activity. "High Arbiter," she began. "1 year ago I gave you an ultimatum. You chose to ignore it. You sent your fleets to destroy us. You tried to use weapons of mass destruction against civilian worlds. You failed." Found his voice. "You cannot do this. We have ruled for 12,000 years. We are eternal." Shook her head slowly. "Nothing is eternal, especially not cruelty. Your empire is finished. Your fleets are scattered or captured. Your subject peoples have risen against you. You stand alone." "Then destroy us," snarled. "That is what conquerors do." "We are not conquerors," said. "We never wanted to rule anyone. We only wanted to be left in peace. You could not allow that. You had to push. You had to threaten. You had to murder 43 innocent people just to prove your power." She leaned forward slightly. "This is the end of all things, Arbiter. The end of your empire. The end of your power. The end of the fear you spread across the galaxy for thousands of years. But it is not the end of your people. We do not believe in genocide. You will face justice for your crimes. Fair trials with evidence and witnesses. Some of you will spend the rest of your lives in prison, but your children will be free to build something new, something better." Laughed bitterly. "You expect me to believe that? No species is so foolish. Power demands punishment. Victory demands vengeance." "That is what you believe," said. "That is why you lost. You never understood us. You saw our kindness as weakness. You saw our mercy as stupidity. But here is the truth, Arbiter. Humans do not fight hardest for ourselves. We fight hardest for each other, for the lost, for the forgotten. For David, who was 17 years old and just wanted to see the stars." Her voice hardened. "You murdered him. You thought it was a warning. Instead, it was your end." She held up a document. "These are the terms of surrender. The government will dissolve immediately. All military forces will stand down. Political prisoners will be released. Every species currently under your control will be given the chance to choose their own future. You will comply. This is not a negotiation. This is simply what is going to happen." The conclave surrendered within the hour. 10 years later, the galaxy was a different place. Where the Empire had enforced stagnation and fear, 1,000 cultures now flourished. Species that had been forbidden to develop technology were reaching for their own stars. Ancient enemies discovered that without imperial manipulation, they had no reason to fight each other. Humanity had refused to take the Emperor's throne. Instead, they had burned the throne entirely. The United Species Cooperative operated on principles they would never have understood: mutual aid, voluntary cooperation, shared knowledge. Species helped each other because they chose to, not because they were forced to. Humanity served as guides and partners, not rulers. They offered technology freely. They helped build schools and hospitals. They asked for nothing in return except friendship. On Prime, the old conclave chamber had been torn down. In its place stood a memorial station, a museum dedicated to all those who had suffered under imperial rule. The names of every victim were carved into walls of white stone. Millions of names, millions of stories. Ambassador, now 80 years old, stood on the observation deck. Below her, children played in a garden that had once been a place of fear. Children ran alongside the children of species their ancestors had enslaved. They did not see enemies. They saw friends. A young approached her. He was a historian working on a book about the war. He looked nervous. "Ambassador, may I ask you a question?" Smiled warmly, "Of course. I have studied the war for years. Your people had every reason to destroy us. After everything the Empire did, you had the power to wipe us from existence. Why did you show mercy?" Was quiet for a moment. She looked out at the stars that filled the sky above the memorial. "Because someone had to be the first to break the cycle," she said finally. "For 12,000 years, the galaxy operated on a simple rule: the strong crush the weak. Every species that gained power used it to hurt others. It never stopped. It just kept going, generation after generation, forever." She turned to look at the young historian. "When we won the war, we had a choice. We could become the new empire. We could take the throne and rule through fear just like the did. Some people wanted that. They said it was practical. They said it was necessary." "What did you say?" asked the historian. "I said no. I said that if we became them, then we had not really won anything. The cycle would continue. The violence would never end," smiled. "We chose to be something new, something the galaxy had never seen. We chose to be kind when kindness was not required. We chose mercy when revenge would have been easy." The historian wrote her words carefully, and it worked. "It worked," agreed. "Not perfectly, not completely. There are still problems, there always will be, but the galaxy is better now than it was. Species trust each other more. Wars happen less often. Children grow up believing that peace is possible." She looked down at the garden below, where a child was helping a smaller alien reach a high branch. That child down there will never know what it felt like to live under the Empire. She will never know the fear her grandparents knew. She will grow up in a galaxy where species work together instead of conquering each other. That is what we fought for. That is what David died for. That is what all of this was for. The historian closed his notebook. "Thank you, Ambassador. I think I understand now." Smiled, "I hope so. Because one day humans will be gone. We are mortal like everyone else. When that day comes, someone else will have to carry the torch. Someone else will have to choose kindness over cruelty. I hope they make the right choice." She looked up at the stars one more time. Somewhere out there, beyond the edge of known space, new species were being born. New civilizations were taking their first steps into the universe. "That is what humanity does," she said softly. "We choose, and then we live with our choices. I hope we chose well." The sun began to set over the